Welcome to Chapters After Dark. I am your host, Angelique Starr. Tonight we begin Chapter 2, A Forgiving Rage by Wendy Williams Thornton. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Let's begin. Welcome to Chapters After Dark. Tonight, we continue Allison's story. Remember, this copyrighted work is a work of fiction. Any similarities to persons living or deceased are purely coincidental. Mature audiences only. The first thing I needed to do was tell Nick. I didn't much care what his reaction would be because I knew I wouldn't tolerate any more of his behavior. Not only was my life at stake, but that of my unborn child. I prayed to God that the baby wasn't hurt by him. With all the wrestling and pulling and tugging we did last night, it was a wonder if a baby could survive that. I was amazed at how much my maternal instincts were already kicking in. I was also a little angry. I had to make sure that my baby was alive and well inside of me. I'd be so devastated if something was wrong. How could I not have known I was pregnant? I rustled in my purse to find my cell phone. I had to tell Nick the good news. I dialed Nick's cell phone number, but hesitated before pushing the send button. No, the first thing I needed to do was make a doctor's appointment. I'd have a full checkup, make sure everything was all right with the baby before I began telling everyone, especially Nick. I did just that. In a week, I'd know for sure that I was pregnant and that my baby was safe within me. Then I could tell my husband and family the blessed news. Good news was in order. I'd kept my situation from the people closest to me for so long. No one even expected what I was going through. I'd become so good at hiding the physical and emotional trauma I was going through. The only other person that knew was Campbell, and she didn't even know the full story. I wondered how Campbell would take the news of my pregnancy. Campbell hated Nick. She'd be happy for me, but she would demand that I leave him for the safety of my child. Campbell told me to leave Nick the first time he'd laid hands on me, but I didn't listen. I turned out to be no different than the women in the article. I justified his behavior in my own mind. I kept the horrible secrets that were destroying me on the inside, and for the life of me, I didn't understand why. Mostly out of shame. My life had to be perfect. I was Allison Graham Duquesne's Esquire. My world was perfect. At least that's what everyone thought. I was good at masquerading around perpetrating that lie. I even enjoyed it, I secretly admitted to myself. I pulled my suit jacket tighter. It was cooler than I thought down here by the water, yet I didn't want to leave. I could actually think logically down here. For the first time in a long time, I felt peaceful. After a few more moments, I headed back to the office. I was getting hungry. I stopped by the pita place, grabbed a quick bite, and casually strolled back to the office. When I arrived, Rowena was away from the front desk. No clients were waiting. I was relieved. I didn't feel much like working today anyway. I walked to my office and closed the office door behind me. I retreated behind my desk and allowed the huge chair to swallow me in its massiveness. My office space wasn't nearly as lavish as my aunt's, but I didn't fare too badly in comparison. The entire office area was beautiful. It clearly emulated its feminine touches, yet it commanded respect. Professionalism exuded from its very walls. Besides, I couldn't complain. I was the youngest attorney in the firm. I knew I'd make partner after serving my time. I was handling my share of clients with little or no difficulties at this time, and I had all the luxuries and privileges of every other attorney there. I had a secure job, a beautiful office, and was being paid well. I was about to become a mother. I had family and a best friend that loved and respected me. I was blessed. I spread my lunch out on the desk like a picnic and ate until my heart and belly were content. I studied the faces of the women in the stories until I began to see myself. I let my thoughts drift back to my initial encounter with Nick's rage. I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer as early as 4th grade. I was 9 years old when my aunt visited my class on career day. I watched her over time, and I would mimic the way she walked, the way she talked, and the way she could easily persuade others to her point of view. 2 of my assets as an attorney would be my skillful articulation of words, along with my effectiveness at arguing my viewpoint, she told me. I was an indomitable student, always making the honor roll. I acted in several theatrical productions, represented my class at school functions in and outside of school, was a proud member of my high school's debate team for 4 years, read a lot, was class president, and voted most likely to succeed for senior mock elections. I had developed quite a reputation for being frank, sometimes to a fault, and outspoken. I knew I would fulfill my destiny of becoming a lawyer. Nick and I had been married for about a year and a half when the first incident of domestic abuse happened. My career was off to a raging start. All things considered, things were going well. Given that I was a new attorney, our marriage was still in the honeymoon stages where we couldn't get enough of each other. We were still madly in love and longed for each other when we were apart. We showered together in the morning, called each other at lunchtime, and spent every evening after work working out together, then lounging around the house afterward. We planned meals together, went grocery shopping together, and couldn't wait to be alone. When our schedules would permit, we would steal away for the weekend, drive up to a bed and breakfast, and spend the entire time away from our daily grind. This particular evening, Nick and I were relaxing in front of the television set after dinner. We were sitting on the living room sofa, still in our workout clothes from our visit to the gym earlier. Nick was a fitness buff despite occasionally smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. We had crawled onto the sofa to let our food digest. I was stretched out on the sofa, with my back resting on the arm of the sofa and my feet across his lap. He was massaging my feet just the way I liked it. As we nestled on the brown tweed sectional sofa that I hated, watching the news, I moved over closer to him and cuddled into the bend of his arm. My head rested safely on his mountainous chest. He occasionally stroked my head and kissed me. I was so relaxed I could have forgone my shower and slept right there in his arms. Suddenly, the alert of a breaking news story blared across the television screen. Nick rose up more attentively. He jumped up, nearly tossing me to the floor. He leaned in towards the TV and focused his attention on the television. "What's the matter, honey?" I asked inquisitively, not realizing that I had actually fallen asleep. Nick shushed me as he leaned back on the sofa. A reporter was telling the story about a motorist who had just died after a traffic stop. 2 officers from Nick's former precinct were involved. We both silently prayed that the officers were unharmed. I massaged his shoulders as he waited attentively for the commercial to end so that we could hear the remainder of the story. I was glad that Nick was no longer a patrol officer, even though his job was equally as dangerous. Since being on the FAT squad, he'd been shot at, stabbed, and almost run over by a car. Nick had joined the police force right after graduating from high school. He followed in the footsteps of his oldest brother and many of the men in his family. As the story unfolded, I could see the relief in his demeanor. I, on the other hand, was appalled at what was being reported. I began voicing my opinion of the matter. I commented on the legalities involving the story, especially those concerning the rights of the suspect that had been violated by the officers. "Wow, I wish I was practicing criminal law. I'd take this case on pro bono," I stated. Nick playfully pushed me away from him. "What?" he responded. "Why would you even want to get involved? Were you there, Allison?" I looked at him sarcastically. "You heard the reporter, Nick. Now, baby, I know you are not taking up for those pigs. They have clearly trampled over almost every constitutional right that protects us as citizens." "Oh, you're tripping," Nick said. "You weren't there, Allison, so you shouldn't even comment on this. I know you don't believe everything the news reports. They weren't there either." The reporter broke in again with more news about the incident. The story was continuing to develop. Nick moved to the edge of the sofa. He tuned in more attentively. Thank you for joining us for tonight's episode. Tune in next week for the next chapter of Forgiving Rage. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Hit the notification bell. We'll see you next week. Good night.